When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore. Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ling, and you'll sing Vita Bella.
Hello there. Welcome to Alberto's La Bella Cuccina. Today we have a great show. Happy Tuesday for you and happy day. And also I'd like to say a special hello to Fresno. Today we have an incredible guest with us. He's an enologist and he's also a chef. So we're going to ask him a lot of questions about where the grapes come from a Brunello, a Barolo, and so forth from that. So we start from the north and we go on into the south of Italy. So please welcome my guest. His name is Doug Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, welcome to my show.
Alberto, nice to see you again.
Yes, and a special, tonight we have a special night. Tell us all about, let's start with the Brunellos. What kind of grape do we have in a Brunello wine?
Believe it or not, Sangiovese.
Sangiovese.
Many different clones of Sangiovese in Italy. It is their true noble grape of Tuscany and in different areas. Brunello is the name of a town, or Montalcino is the name of a town in Tuscany. And the Brunellos are made from the Sangiovese Grosso, or Sangioveto is another name for it. And they're really one of the better wines of the world, and in very, very high demand.
The Brunello is sometimes called like the royals.
Yeah,
will drink that kind of wine.
Yeah, the wine of kings.
The wine of kings.
Yes, definitely. And Brunello is part of Tuscany, which is also known for Chianti, of course, and Chianti is made from.
Brunello is called Chianti?
No, it's in the same area, in Tuscany. Tuscany. And Chianti, again, the name of a town, and there's the different regions of the Chianti area for growing, but Sangiovese also makes the basis for Chiantis, but it's a different clone. So I mentioned there's many different clones for Sangiovese. They can be called Morellino di Scanzano, it can be called Sangioveto, can be Sangiovese Grosso. It just depends. Montepulciano, it just depends what area of Italy that you're growing and living in as to what they actually call the grape.
So actually a Chianti is the region where Sangiovese grows.
Yes, but it also grows in different areas of the country.
Yeah, so a lot of people say, give me a Chianti, but they don't know what grape's in there.
They don't. A lot of people do not realize Chianti is not the name of the grape in the wine, and most of the Italian wines aren't named after the grape. Brunello is just like Chianti. They're made from technically the same grape, Sangiovese. If you go up to the Piemonte region, you have Barolo and you have Barbaresco. But
all right, now
neither of those are
ahead of that.
The same.
So they go to Barbaresco. Barbaresco, he's got kind of a, what kind of grape is the same as Sangiovese grape?
It's Nebbiolo.
Nebbiolo grape.
Yes, and this is also the same grape
as the Barolo.
As in Barolo. So neither of those, again, are named after the grape that's in the bottle. So when people go in, there are people that think Chianti is the name of a grape. It's not. It's a blend, and that's the same with Barbaresco, the same with Barolo. But to throw confusion into this, of course, there's never any confusion in the wine business. There are a few wines and a few grapes that get on the label of a bottle, such as in the Barolo or Piemonte area, you will find Dolcetto, and you will find Barbera. And you have a Barbera d'Alba and a Barbera d'Asti, which is Asti and Alba are two areas with a river dividing them, and on one side you have a little bit more fleshier, more round, flavorful wines. On the Asti side you have a little bit more acidic. But the Dolcetto and the Barbera that grow there, that is the name of the grape.
The Dolcetto?
Yeah, Dolcetto is the name of a grape, and Barbera is the name of a grape. But yet Barolo and Barbaresco, it's Nebbiolo in the bottle.
Nebbiolo in the bottle.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah. No, they let you know. They're the ones that want to know what the difference is in those wines. So now we know that from the maestro here, and then we're going to go up now into...
Well, if you go across the top of the country, you go from the Piemonte area, which There's also some, really nice. There's a Gemme that comes from up there. There's Piemonte is up in the hills. Very age-worthy wines that come from there. Very delicious. They even have some whites. They call the one Arneus, which is what we call like a white Barolo, or
a white Barolo.
It means little rascal. Is
Little
what
rascal,
it is.
but now
It's a white wine
what
from
kind
the
of grape is
Piemonte.
it?
Arneus is the name of the
Arneus
grape
is
as
the
well.
name of the grape.
So you'll find some wineries will call their white wine a different name. It's a proprietary name that they just made up, but Arneus is actually the name of the grape. Then you go east, and you'll find an area called Trentino Alto Adige, which if you look to the neighboring north, you'll find the country of Austria. So there's a lot of Austrian influence into the grape growing in the Trentino Alto Adige, and that's where you're also going to find a grape and wine that is not very well known. It's called Lagrein, Lagrein. It's a very rustic red grape. I'd say it has probably some sort of relationship, or at least flavor-wise, to Nebbiolo or Pinot Noir.
Really?
Yeah,
Is that
and it's but it's rustic, so it's not a big new age or new world fruit forward wine, but it's a wine made to go with the food from the area. And Italy is known for that the wines that they make in Italy are made to go with the cuisines from that area.
From the area.
And they're a little higher acid wines because they're made to go with food.
What do you mean by acid?
The acidity in the grapes works well with food. So here in America, sometimes we try to tone down the acid.
Right.
Acid will on the finish will be the thing that kind of puckers you up a little bit. It has a certain astringency on the finish, but it's beautiful with food, and that's what happens with some people that, you have these big flabby wines that they take the acid or tone the acids down. They're not great food wines, but all the wines in Italy are made to go with food. So when you find them with a little higher acid, and you don't want to sit out on the back porch and drink it, but then you sit down and have it with food, it's a whole different experience.
You got to breathe a little bit, and then it comes to it.
And then another thing that the Trentino Alto Adige area is known for is Pinot Grigio. They make some really great Pinot Grigios, very mineral characteristics to them, and again, really great with seafood.
So Alto Adige is one of your favorite wines, or it would be?
It
could be one of them, or you have a favorite?
I like the whites. I like the
whites
Pinot
and the
Grigio that comes from Alto Adige because I like the minerality. As you go to the east from Trentino Alto Adige, then you get the Veneto. Of course, it's named after the famous city of Venice, but the actual whole area is very large compared to the actual city.
What's it called? The House of what? The House of Valpolicella.
Yeah, and that's where you find Valpolicella, Amarone, and you also find Soave, and you also find Pinot Grigio, and you also will find the DOCG of the sparkling wine Prosecco is in the Veneto.
The Italian.
Yeah, and it's not technically. That would be Franciacorta. Franciacorta is the Italian champagne.
Okay.
And that's actually made with a blend of white grapes, made just like champagne. Prosecco is made a little differently in that they ferment the grapes and keep the juice in tanks until it's ready to be bottled and shipped. And then they...
What kind of grape in the Prosecco then?
It's Gria. And
Gria.
It used to be that we called Prosecco grape. And when they determined that it actually had a different name, they now call... And you could make Prosecco anywhere in the country 10 years ago. You could call it Prosecco if it came from, Marche down in the south. You can't do that anymore. A few years ago, they changed it so that there is a denominazione originale controllata garantita area. It guarantees the quality level of the grapes that are growing and the certain restrictions that they have to grow.
Some of those
and
wines,
make
they
the
have
grapes.
that seal on the bottom.
Yeah, you'll
the neck
see
of the bottle.
You see DOC or DOC. Yeah, the rooster is even over and above that. You have DOC, which is, and then the DOCG, which is the guaranteed. And then the Rooster is another consortium of wineries that's a quality level. But so now the Prosecco is only made in the Valdo d'Abbiadiene, if I said that correctly, area, and that's where Prosecco comes from. Any other sparkling wine made, or that used to be called Prosecco, made from that grape, cannot be called Prosecco anymore. So it's only from this area up in the Veneto that comes from.
Down the Veneto, there's a very famous wine and a very delicious wine, which is called Amarone. What do you tell us about Amarone? What kind of grape?
Amarone is made.
Amarone is true.
Yeah, Amarone is predominantly made from Corvina, which is
Corvina grape.
Yeah, which is a red grape, and it is the basis for Valpolicella. Valpolicella is an area in the Veneto. Again, it has a DOC status. It has a DOCG status.
The rooster?
No. The rooster is mostly in Tuscany.
Okay.
So in the Veneto. And the Valpolicella, you get the nice, fruity, fresh Valpolicellas, and then you have a Valpolicella superiore. And the superiore is usually from the older vines, because the word superiore technically with the winemaking means it has a higher alcohol content than the others. And it sounds weird that you would say, oh, it's higher alcohol, so it's better. That's not the case. It's higher alcohol because the grapes are better. The grapes are older vines. The grapes produce more sugar, and they're left out on the vines a little bit longer, so that they're a little sweeter when they're picked, so they automatically produce more alcohol. But the grapes and the vineyards that they produce the superiore from are of better quality. So that's the Valpolicella. And then you go from the Valpolicella, after you make it, you have this leftover must. And that's what happens with all grapes. So you go into drying these Corvina grapes up in the tops of barns and whatever, or leave them out on the vines till they're dry, and you make this ultra-rich, delicious Amarone. So
Amarone, it comes from
the same grape.
What is it called? What do they call that when they have them rest on top of the hay?
Drying them out. I'm trying to think. Ripasso. I'm trying to think of the name. Ripasso, actually, no, is when you pass it over the lees. So you make the Amarone that is so dry, so raisiny, that there's so much sugar that you have to inoculate it 2 times with yeast to get it to go dry. 50 years ago, Amarone was a sweet wine. It is no longer a sweet wine.
Because it was like a racing, and then it
would stop.
Let it go through once, and then it goes a little bit more and more.
The fermentation wouldn't consume all the sugar, so it would be left with sweet wine. They now inoculate it a second time, so it's dry. And once then that is drained off the lees, they have this must that's left, and it's got this great Amarone flavors to it. They then take Valpolicella wine, put it onto these leftover Amarone must, and make more wine out of that, and that is called ripassa, because they're repassing wine over the lees, the leftovers, per se, of the Amarone. So that is what you and I have made this comment many times. We refer to that as baby Amarone. It's you still get some of the flavor profile of Amarone, but you don't get all of the extraction and the big massive wines that Amarone are.
Nice finish of that.
Amarone can age for years and years. And Ripassa will do fine for a while, but Ripassa gives the Valpolicella just this a big richness that just goes more with roasted meats, prime rib, leg of lamb, things like that. And I actually liken it when I drink Ripassa. I actually was in a blind tasting thing, and I thought the Ripassa I was drinking was Syrah, and it just, to me, comes off a little bit as a Syrah type wine. That's just my personal feeling. But it's so when you think of what foods would go with Syrah, the same things would be with Ripassa. You know, and also in the Veneto, besides of course the famous Pinot Grigio area, you also have the Soave area, which many years ago, all the commercials with Soave Bola, but it's a white wine that's well known, and a very good one. Would make you forget all about those old commercials of the cheap stuff that they talk about. So the Veneto is very well known for white wines as well as the great
Soave Bola
reds.
is not as popular as it used to be a few years back. I mean,
No.
And especially in this area, I don't see any Valpolicella. I don't see any Bardolino, which it comes from that area.
Yeah, it does. Bardolino is actually a grape too, and the Valpolicella you'll see when you get in a restaurant that has a bigger wine list, but mostly the smaller list will put Chiantis and Pinot Grigios on the list because that's what people are familiar with.
Right.
But to me, a Valpolicella Superiore or a Raposa is a delicious wine to have with your food. And a Valpolicella is a value-priced wine in a lot of the fine wine shops.
Let's continue more and more about. We're going to continue now to going into the Tuscan area and talk more about wines, and a little bit more of that right after this message. Hello, welcome to Alberto's restaurant. Come on in. At Alberto's, you will have a new experience at great Italian dining. We have fantastic pasta dishes like fettuccine alfredo and eggplant parmesan, and you have to come in and try the chicken marsala and the calamari con limone. I take great pride in everything I prepare, and I know you will love it. And what's dinner without a little wine? At Alberto's, we have a great selection of wines to go with your dinner.
Alberto's Restaurante in Pacific Grove.
Come and see us tonight. Salud. Salud.
Anthony Sullivan here for the Edge of Glory, the best knife sharpener money can buy. It's so precise, it'll turn this plastic credit card into a precision cutting instrument. The Edge of Glory is no ordinary knife sharpener. Its dual-hardened teeth hone any blade to a razor's edge that'll put the bite back into your dullest knife. It locks onto any smooth surface, then just draw the knife and that old knife is ready for more. We took this plastic credit card and tried to cut a tomato. Nothing happens, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and now it's got an Edge of Glory that slices like magic. Call now and get the Edge of Glory for just $10.99. You'll also get a complete 3-piece knife set. They're a $20 value, yours free. But order now and you can double this entire offer. You get 2 Edge of Glories and 2 knife sets for $10.99. Order now and find out about free shipping.
Call 1-800-617-9159 and get your Edge of Glory. But hurry, we're giving away a special offer on a second Edge of Glory and the knives with today's orders. That's 1-800-617-9159. Call now.
Hey, hello there. Welcome back to Alberto's La Bella Cuccina. We're talking to a great enologist and a great sommelier, and also a chef who's going to be probably showing his talents in Alberto's restaurant. And very near the future, a great dinner will be prepared by the chef, Doug Almstrand.
I haven't done that in a while.
He hasn't done that well, but he'll show his talents and a great meal at Alberto's next December, I believe.
We're going to do it mid-December.
Mid-December.
Yeah.
So be in touch, and I will be in touch with you guys to let you know when Chef Doug was going to create a marvelous dinner for you at Alberto's. So please make your reservations now. And also remember that Christmas is here, so let's get those reservations coming into Alberto's, which is a family dinner, which is a birthday, your girlfriend's birthday. Call and make a reservation today and spoil yourself at Alberto's, okay? So let's just go and continue with Mr.
We actually were chefs at the same time in Los Angeles, and
That's
it
correct,
was before we knew each other. So I worked as a chef for 17 years, and I'm looking forward to it. It's kind of fun to do it when it's not my place.
There you go. That'll be fun.
You know, there's not as much pressure on me at all when I'm cooking for people. When I know they come in the next night, it's back to your thing. So
Oh boy,
it's not going to be Italian. I'm not.
It's whatever the chef.
I can't do it better than you. So,
stop it. Stop it.
So, but no, it'll be something that comes out of my brain, and I'm looking forward to it.
Special. It'll be a special night.
It's going to be a Thursday night. We have to just pick which date.
You got to pick the date, and you'll hear it from here on Tuesday in Alberto's La Cuccina. So we're going to continue talking a little bit more and more about wines and how the wines go with food. Let's just have a nice Barolo with a nice New York, or a nice Filet, or a nice Chateaubriand. Would that go well?
Sure it would. Yeah, and Barolos and Barbarescos, it's especially Barolos, are really hold up to a lot of flavors, a lot of herbs, a lot of garlic, like a roasted leg of lamb, things that are braised like short ribs and ossobuco.
Ossobuco,
You know, even though veal is a lighter meat, but when you cook it for an extended period of time and get the sauce, and it's so rich and goes really beautifully with nice Barolos. And Barolos are an interesting wine because the actual area of Barolo is broken up into communes. And each commune has different soil characteristics to it to give different flavor profiles to the wines, and some are more expensive than others. Some are very hard to come by, very highly regarded and allocated.
Because they're Barolos the same name, and then what? And then
Each commune has its own little, I'd say, a flavor profile because of the different soils, the different weather. Now, in northern Italy, especially Barolo and Barbaresco, you cannot plant new vines. See, that you can't expand your vineyard and make as much wine as you want. It's very restricted in Barolo. So when you have a specific vineyard site that's very famous, and you can only make so much wine out of that vineyard, and if you have a year where, although it could be a great year weather-wise, it may not have as much fruit on the vine as usual, well, then you're going to have less wine. If
so
you have a
few cases.
Yeah, if you have a great year, you're going to have more wine, but you're still not going to have a lot of wine because there just isn't the vineyards, and they won't let. The only way you can plant a new vine in Barolo is if you rip up an old one.
Okay.
So there's no expansion of the vineyards whatsoever, and part of that is to maintain the quality levels and to maintain, you know, the prices of the Barolos. But what you can look for in a Barolo is look for just the DOCG Barolo. It'll just say the word Barolo on the label, and that is a blend of grapes from the different communes. Or it could be a blend of a couple of vineyard sites from one producer where they take specific blocks for their high-end wines, and then they take the rest of the grapes and make just what they call Barolo. But if there's anything else on the label underneath the word Barolo, that's a vineyard or a commune of the Barolo area, and that makes it more expensive because the grapes there are usually older vine and much better attended to, and they hand-pick the quality grapes to go into their high-end wines and then use the rest for just the...
When will it be, let's say, the best time to drink a Barolo? I mean, what age will it be? Will it be ready to
Let's go to, again, if just the word Barolo is on the label, you're not even going to see it in a store until it's. I mean, right now it's 2013, and we're selling 2008 and 2009, and so you're not even going to see it till it's about 4 years old.
So,
and that's the one with just the word Barolo. So that you can drink them. They'll last another 5, 6, 10 years easily, but those are more drinkable early. The more expensive ones with the vineyard designates on them, you're not going to see those for 5 years till after they've
what you
been
call it,
picked.
Classico or something like which Barolos are not Classico.
No, they're not termed that,
term.
but when you see the vineyard on them, the commune name on them, that's what you're going to have a better quality.
Stay in the barrel
They stay in the barrel longer, and they age for 15 to 25 years easily. And so to buy one of those now, you look for an older vintage. But if you buy the current vintage, say it's a 2008, I wouldn't drink it for 10 years.
10 years. Oh, yeah.
Finding an older one is more difficult because people buy them and they collect them and put them down to drink later. So look for a Barolo. I mean, if you want to just go out and try a Barolo, a good Barolo, and have it with dinner, look for one with just the word Barolo on it, and look for probably a 2008. It's a very good vintage. 2007, if you can find them. There are 2009s out there already. And look for something that's a little older, and you'll find some heaven in the bottle that way.
Okay, so would that be the same with the rest, like a Brunello? Will it be the same?
Brunello, it's different grapes, of course, but yes, Brunello actually doesn't have all the communes split up like that. Brunello is the area, and it's they have very expensive wines, very much sought after. What I suggest when people don't know what Brunello is and haven't had it and know what to look for, you look for a Brunello producer and look for their wine that's called Rosso. And the Rosso is their leftovers. And not that they're bad grapes, but they specifically want perfect high quality going into their Brunellos, and the rest of their grapes always get put into a Rosso. So a Brunello di Montalcino and a Rosso di Montalcino, the same winery will produce both of those, but the Rosso is their entry-level wine and the Brunello is their pride and joy. So I would look for the Rosso because it has the same grapes. It's the Sangiovese or Grosso or Sangiovese in it, and it has what it has is doesn't get all the new oak. It gets some of the older barrels.
And they're in the oak also.
Yeah, oak? and it gets released sooner. So you'll find a Rosso di Montalcino that's 2 years younger than the Brunello, and they're both released at the same time.
So they're drinkable now. You can drink the young.
And you can do that. I mean, a Brunello or a Rosso. To me, a Rosso is better, personally, than inexpensive Chiantis, and they're made from.
So you call
some
that
of the same grape.
you call that Rosso Chianti?
No, it's not a Chianti because it comes from the Montalcino area, so it can't be called Chianti.
It cannot because it's not in the same region.
The only thing that can be called Chianti comes from the Chianti region.
Which is Sangiovese.
Yeah, well, Sangiovese and Colorino and some other things. They actually, Chianti is allowed to put white wines. There's Trebbiano, and if the old straw bottle, inexpensive Chianti. Yeah. There's actually almost as much white grape in there as there is red grapes, and that's why they can be sold so inexpensively.
It's almost the end of those.
Yeah, and what happened, it was some of the quality producers in Chianti decided they wanted to make better wine, so they wanted to not use so much Trebbiano and Colorino. So the Colorino is an inexpensive red grape. The Trebbiano is a white grape. And they said, we don't want to use that. We want to put some other stuff in there. And that's where Super Tuscans came from. Because they left off the Trebbiano and they started putting in a little Merlot or some Cabernet or whatever.
Or in Sangiovese.
Yeah. So next to Brunello and Chianti is Carmignano. And Carmignano actually allowed Cabernet Sauvignon. It was called something else. When it was growing there, but it's Cabernet Sauvignon. They actually allowed it in their blends, and so the neighboring areas like Chianti and stuff. So well, let's put some of that into our wines. But Chianti wouldn't let them call it Chianti, so that's where the term Super Tuscan came from. And that's when you hear the word Super Tuscan, it's a blend of it's a blend of grapes, normally consisting of predominantly Sangiovese with other things put in it that isn't normal for the Chianti region, but to me, it makes a better wine, and that's why they're making it. They say it makes a better wine. So when you see a Super Tuscan or somebody tells you this is a Super Tuscan wine, you can pretty much, count on getting a good bottle of wine and getting a good glass.
The Super Tuscans nowadays, you can drink them like young, like
some of them, yes, yeah. They make them that way. They also make some like Sassicaia and stuff, and Ornellaia that you want to put down for 15 or 20 years. Well, the Super Tuscans got so popular, Sassicaia being one of the first ones. Sassicaia is from a town called Bulgari. And because of Sassicaia being so popular, the Italian wine government was having some issues with the popularity. So they actually gave Sassicaia its own DOCG, and the Sassicaia now is listed as a Bulgari wine, where it used to be just the IGT Super Tuscan. So the Super Tuscans come from the Chianti area, some Brunello area, Carmignano area. They're all in the Tuscany region. And when you can call them that Super Tuscan if you want, but Carmignano was actually the first true Super Tuscan because it always allowed Cabernet Sauvignon in their blends. Yes, yeah. And in Chianti, there's a producer called Castello d'Ama that for years did a Chianti Classico Riserva. That was their cheapest wine, a Classico Riserva. But they made this famous allocated called Liparita Merlot. And they had planted Merlot to do super Tuscan wines. And they were doing a Merlot that was hard to get. It was so popular with the collectors.
I never tried that.
Liparita Merlot. It's very expensive. And so they make Castello d'Ama. Still makes their Chianti Classico Reserva, but all the other wines they make are super Tuscans.
All of them.
Yeah, and they don't make just plain Chianti or Chianti Classico or even Chianti Reserva. It's Chianti Classico Reserva is the lowest denomination. And the Classico word has nothing to do with it being a classic wine. That's the area of Chianti called Classico. And they also, there's 6 other areas in Chianti with different names, Rufina and other names. So Colle Senese, when you see Chianti Colle Senese, it's a territory in Chianti. Chianti Rufina, not the brand Ruffino, but Rufina, Rufina. When you see Chianti Rufina, it's actually an area of Chianti, just like Classico.
Let's continue talking more about the Rufino or in Rufina. There's 2 of them, Na and No, Rufina and Rufina, right after this message.
Hello, welcome to Alberto's restaurant. Come on in. At Alberto's, you will have a new experience at great Italian dining. We have fantastic pasta dishes like fettuccine alfredo and eggplant parmesan, and you have to come in and try the chicken marsala and the calamari con limone. I take great pride in everything I prepare, and I know you will love it. And what's dinner without a little wine? At Alberto's, we have a great selection of wines to go with your dinner.
Alberto's Restaurante in Pacific Grove.
Come and see us tonight. Salud!
Salud! Do you have odors and dampness in your basement and crawl space? An unhealthy home begins with problems in damp, poorly ventilated areas. The conditions down below nurture molds, dust mites, and result in a buildup of gases and pollutants that can cause serious illnesses, like asthma, emphysema, and some cancers. The pollutants work their way up to your living quarters, infecting your entire home. Wave ventilation for moisture control and air quality can solve this problem. The unit's unique technology is designed to replace the damp, stale, polluted air with dry, fresh air and maintain a healthy, comfortable environment all year round. Unlike dehumidifiers, there's no buckets of water or filters, and it costs about $3 a month in electricity. Protect your home and family. Get to the source of the problem with Wave Ventilation. Call now. Make Wave Ventilation your answer to healthy living. Satisfaction guaranteed.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Hello there. Welcome back to Alberto's La Bella Cucina. We're having a great conversation about all kinds of wines. Wines from Italy, from the north, from the south, from the middle of the south, from Florence. And we have nobody else but an expert here, Mr. Doug Almstrand. So here we're going to continue with more and more. And what's with food? What comes with food? What's the nose? What's the legs? He's going to explain that, all of that, right here in Alberto's La Bella Cucina. What it means legs when you say legs?
Legs is actually, when you look at the glass, when you swirl your wine in the glass when you first pour it, and you get the wine comes up out in the sides, and then watch it as the wine comes back down the sides of the glass, it forms what we call legs. And depending on the viscosity and a lot of times the alcohol content of the wine, the longer legs that you see usually denotes that you have a little more viscous wine, a little more body to your wine.
Because I notice a lot of people that drink wine and they swirl the wine so many times, and they put their nose into the glass. But what is that?
Inexpensive wines don't have legs. You can see that when you swirl them. I mean, they or have very little. And what swirling the wine does is it aerates it. Wine is a living thing. There's yeast cells in it, obviously made from grapes, and it continues to evolve in the bottle, no matter what. So when you open a bottle of wine, especially an older wine, but some grapes like Pinot Noir and Nebbiolo and stuff really need time to open up. And opening up means they need to breathe. And the way to speed that up is to swirl your glass.
But not constantly.
Don't go crazy. Don't shake the bottle. You know, some people want to shake the bottle up or whatever, but you swirl your glass a little bit, it gets more air into it. And then it allows you to look at color. Part Part of your blind taste, when I do blind tastings, part of it the legs, the nose, and the color. When you look at the rim of the glass, the meniscus of the wine shows a lot. You look in the center of the glass, it has a deeper color. You look at the sides, and if you see bright purple or light purple, it's usually a younger wine. As the wine ages, it gets more brick brown colored, and you'll find that in older Chiantis and older Barolos and Brunellos. You'll see this color on the outside of the rim of the glass that is a lot lighter than what's to the interior, and that'll show you that your wine has been aged. It's a little older than the rest. You then swirl it up to your nose, and you get the aromas. It's actually better if you tilt the glass and sniff at the top of the glass of the opening. You'll get more of the aromas, and then that's what we call the nose.
The nose. There
That
we
is
go.
the nose. It's the aromas that are coming out of the glass and hitting your nostrils. Don't even taste the wine yet. This is all part, to me, it's all part of the sensory joy of drinking a glass of wine. You get it in the glass, you swirl it around, you look at the legs, you look at the color, you inspect it just to see kind of what you're drinking, and then get it up to your nose, and that starts the tasting. But you haven't tasted, because you taste with your nose as well as your taste buds. But you smell first, and you can smell different things in a wine than you actually will taste in the wine. So if you say it has aromas of black cherries and nuts and tobacco or whatever, that isn't necessarily, you're not going to taste that in the wine necessarily. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you smell the same things as you're tasting. But sometimes the smell is completely different than what actually goes into the tasting of the wine. And you've probably also seen people take a sip of the wine and kind of breathe in, like, to make it. And that's, again, they're making it swirl in their mouth, incorporating more air into it, and then it coats the inside of their mouth, and that way you can get your taste buds on the wine everywhere. You have different taste buds in the front of your tongue, you have different taste buds on the side of your tongue, you have different taste buds in the back of your tongue. So by swirling this wine in your mouth, you're hitting all parts of your tongue with the taste buds. And that's part of when you see somebody do that, go, what are they doing? Just drink it. No, well,
See, right here in Alberto's.
that's the way to kind of
Learn how to drink
experience what you're going to be enjoying in the glass. And then once you determine that you like the wine and it's good, then you can sit down and enjoy it with your dinner.
But what would be a good Chianti having with a great New York steak or a filet mignon or some?
I don't like to mention brands, so
No brand. So
yeah.
let's say a
but
Chianti
if you're going to do a Chianti with a big steak, you need to get a good Classico Reserva. You need to get a good Reserva, yeah, because it's got to hold up to that meat and the fat. That's part of it in a steak, especially in a New York steak or a ribeye. There's more fat. And that's what the acidity works on. And I explain this to people as a chef. Acidity is important in cooking, to have a balance on your plate with acids and creams and everything else. So to have a great experience drinking wine and having dinner, the acids in the wine have to balance the food. So to get a fatty steak like a prime or a ribeye or a New York even with a lot of marble in it, you need a wine that's going to cut through that with some good acidity to it, but still some good flavor to it. And that's where you get into the Reservas and the Brunellos and the Chianti Classico Reserva. But on the Chiantis, on the less expensive ones, the value-priced Chiantis, to me they go more with the chicken or a pork, a milder meat. Although their acid is still up there, they've had other wines blended into them more that aren't as hearty, and you will find that they pair up a lot nicer to a chicken or a pork dish that doesn't have as much oomph. They don't fight each other so much, and the acidity in the wine cuts through the fat of the meat. Just like the acidity in a wine will cut through the fat of a cream sauce. So when you're having a nice rich fettuccine Alfredo, you don't want a big buttery Chardonnay, because a big buttery Chardonnay has hardly any acid left in it because of the oak and everything else they've done to it to make it buttery. There's a process that cuts the acid back to make it more buttery. So those wines don't pair well with cream sauces. You want something like Pinot Grigio or Sauvignon Blanc that's going to cut through a cream sauce more so than you would a oaky Chardonnay.
Or a Chardonnay.
Yeah, so if you're going to get a value-priced Chianti, you look for a milder meal to drink that with. You want the big, robust flavors of a big New York steak or with sauces or the braised short ribs and all that kind of stuff. Then you want some more flavor that goes with it and more oomph to it, and that's where you get the Reservas and that. But if you want to, the further south you go into the country of Italy, the more value you get on the wines. But the cuisine also changes, and that's where in the north, for years and years, back when Nouvelle cuisine was popular in France, the northern Italian cuisine also got very popular because up in the north, the cuisine up there is almost more French or European style with creams and reductions and butters. In the south, it's tomatoes.
liqueurs?
Yeah, in the south, it's tomato sauce, and it has
fresher.
it has to do with the way you live and just the. It's down in the south. It's different climate. Things don't grow as well. Tomatoes do well, and tomato sauces are great. And then, so when you get further south, you're looking at wines that you need some things to offset the acidity of the tomatoes. So up in the north, you want to offset the creams and butters. Down in the south, you want to offset the acidity, so you're going to have different wines. They don't grow as much Sangiovese in the south. They grow different, more richer red wines, and they don't use a lot of barrels.
Barrels?
No, well, they're not as affordable down there, and so they use these wines are made to go with their nice tomato-based sauces.
Where do they store the wine? No barrels?
Tanks. Well, old barrels and
Old
tanks.
barrels,
Yeah.
tanks.
But when you go to Brunello or Barolo, Barbaresco, Brunello, they're using all brand new French oak. That's expensive. Down in the south, they use bigger barrels, and they use them for a while. So they don't impart as much oak, but you get a lot of flavor.
Years,
They
no,
get a lot
probably
of
10,
their
15 years.
old vines. Their Salice Salentino is a very rich rustic wine from the southeastern area of Italy that goes really well with tomato-based sauces and stuff. So that when you look at the southern Italian wines, they're more made for the cuisine. That's the Italians, again, even the French too, but they're famous for making the wines in the area to go with the food of the area, and the food of the area is what grows there and what they produce. They're not bringing in the food from another part of the world and then making their wine. It's, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago they started this. And it was what they grew. And it's beautiful to see how it goes together, the food and the wine.
I read one time, a while ago, that Cesare di Borgia, in those ages ago, he imported French chefs to his kingdom in order to bring out the better flavors like the butter and the creams and the Armagnacs and all those wines into incorporate into the food. So they started the I would say the white sauces and the new cuisine of Italy in those days, because he was tired of just tomatoes and this and that, so he wanted to have a better food, like he thought,
and so
incorporating more creams and more butter
and better wines came
better
from that
wines.
over the years. And there's actually a very well-known Italian winemaker who consults with several French Bordeaux houses now because of his famous wines that he was making. And part of his area, his name is Riccardo Cottarella, and his winery his personal winery is in Umbria, which is in the area just south of Tuscany. His brother is famous as the winemaker for Antinori. So they own a winery together as well, but his winery is Falesco, made a very famous Merlot called Montiano, and it's highly allocated for a long time. He makes a little more of it now, but Riccardo is a consultant to several Bordeaux in France. So What we didn't touch on in Tuscany, which we need to talk about a bit too, is dessert.
There we go.
And a very famous dessert wine from Tuscany is Vinsanto.
Vino Santo.
And Vinsanto, again, is dried grapes. They dry them out. If they don't get dry enough in the vineyard, they pull them out and dry them, up in the tops of the barns, and they make this delicious nectar.
Just like the grape from the Amarone.
Amarone. They make it basically out of raisins, and the Italians have always served this in the past with a little biscotti on the side, so you can dip your biscotti in your Vinsanto. But you will find Vinsantos on the shelf are usually in half bottles, 375 milliliter or 500, because they're sweet. And there's also a wine that's not quite as sweet and not as expensive that they call Il Santo, which is Il Santo. It's not as dry. The grapes aren't as dry when they make them, so it's not quite as sweet, but still very good. And this Vinsanto is made from basically Trebbiano and Malvasia, and they get so raisiny. When you go to the store and buy golden raisins, the wine comes out that color as
Let's
well.
talk a little bit more about that, and where the Vino Santo comes. Where is the best Vino Santo? And right after this message.
Hello, welcome to Alberto's restaurant. Come on in. At Alberto's, you will have a new experience at great Italian dining. We have fantastic pasta dishes like fettuccine alfredo and eggplant parmesan, and you have to come in and try the chicken marsala and the calamari con limone. I take great pride in everything I prepare, and I know you will love it. And what's dinner without a little wine? At Alberto's, we have a great selection of wines to go with your dinner.
Alberto's Restaurante in Pacific Grove.
Come and see us tonight. Salud! Salud!
How can you get a crispy restaurant tortilla bowl, but without frying it in oil, grease, and fat?
Just do what I do. Hi, Mark Gill here with the perfect tortilla pan. The fast, easy way to shape, bake, and create delicious tortilla bowls. Place any tortilla into the non-stick pan, pop it in the oven, and in just 5 minutes, perfect tortilla bowls that are always golden and crispy. Fill them with steak and peppers for a crunchy fajita bowl. Perfect Tortilla Pan's exclusive design works with all tortilla sizes, forming a deep-shaped edible bowl. Plus, it's all dishwasher safe. We'll send you not one, but two for just $10. Call right this minute and we'll double your order free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Every caller today will receive our cutting cup to slice, dice, chop, mince, and measure as it cuts. Yep, you get it all for just $10.
To order perfect tortilla for $10 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-292-0574 or order online at buyperfecttortilla.com.
Hello there. Welcome back to Alberto's La Bella Cuccina. We're talking about very interesting wines, and these wines come from called Vino Santo. I remember a long time ago, I had a friend of mine. We went up to Rome, and we went up to Venice, and in Venice I tried, and also Tuscany, trying to find the best Vino Santo. And where do I find it? I found it in Tuscany, which is the Vino Santo Antinori, which is one of the best.
That's where the DOCG area is for Vinsanto.
I tried the Verazavano, which is next door to the Antinori family. I tried in Venice. I tried many of them, and none of them are as good as the one I have. Everywhere I used to go after dinner, give me a Vino Santo, another Vino Santo in Venice, and even in Paris I brought Vino Santo, and nothing like the Vino Santo of Mr. Antinori.
And he does a great job.
Yes.
I don't like to mention.
Yes, right.
But Monsanto makes it absolutely stunning Vinsanto. And Vinsanto is a passita style of wine where you dry them out, you dry the grapes out, and Malvasia, Trebbiano, and they put them in barrels, and they're called caratelli. They seal the barrels up, and they leave them in these barrels for 3 years. And they let them sit, and every spring, when it starts to warm up again, they start fermenting again. Sometimes they open these barrels up and they're still sweet, juicy, and sometimes they've gotten a little bit drier. And then they'll blend and make the wine that they want and put in the bottle before. But it's interesting, that they don't take the yeast cells out, they don't rack it and clean it up yet, they just let it go. And every spring it re-ferments itself, and sometimes gets dry and sometimes it doesn't. They really, till they open it up, they're really not sure what they have, and that's when their winemakers get back into it and blend the sweet wine that they want. But Vinsanto is, to me, the classic sweet wine of Italy, and the area that it grows, or the area they make it, is Tuscany. Because Malvasia and Trebbiano are grapes that grow in a lot of different areas in Italy. So it isn't just the grapes, but it's just the Vinsanto area that they're known for doing this. So, and again, they'll do that. They'll do Vinsanto from Umbria. They'll do Vinsanto from the Veneto, but it's not the same thing. So, Vinsanto from Tuscany. Yeah, Vinsanto from Tuscany is where the DOCG is. So, yeah.
I love Vinsanto with the biscotti, right?
Oh yes.
After dinner.
And the Malvasia is a extremely aromatic grape. Reminds me of Muscat, or reminds me of a little bit of Gewürztraminer. It has this big floral apricot nose to it, and apricot flavors. So by itself, it makes a nice, rich, fruity style wine. So when you dry that out and the Trebbiano together and blend this, it just makes this great fruit. I mean, sometimes it's like you're drinking this apricot nectar of the gods.
Delicious.
It's delicious. Yeah.
Delicious wine.
Yeah, and again, you can get it. It's usually half bottles. You only really want to drink a couple ounces after dinner, and so it isn't like you have to go out and spend a lot of money to buy a decent Vinsanto.
It's hard to find Vino Santo in many restaurants, and you know they usually have the others, type of.
Yeah, there's some restaurants that I know have it here in town, but you can get it at some of the fine wine shops
Alberto's,
in town.
You can have that, Vino Santo in Alberto's.
Yeah. But you can also find it at the fine wine shops and stuff.
Yeah.
You probably won't find it at grocery stores so much, but you'll find it at some nice
It's not as
smaller
popular
stores.
as it used to be.
Yeah, but dessert wine in general isn't quite as popular as it used to be, and I don't know why, because to me it's just to relax and sit back after a nice meal and sip on a nice, sweet, delicious wine like that is the true comfort wine.
Which other wine would you consider be on the same category as the Vino Santo?
Well, they're very well known for Moscato d'Asti in Italy, and now that comes from the Piedmont area, again northwest Italy. I mentioned Barbera d'Asti and d'Alba. Well, Moscato d'Asti comes from the Asti region of Piemonte. People hear the words Asti Spumanti, and that when I say Moscato d'Asti, the d'Asti has nothing to do with it being sparkling. It's an area of the Piemonte area. It can be. You can have a frizzante, which is the term for it, but you can have a Moscato that's not bubbly, and you can have a Moscato that is. Now they like making frizzante Moscato d'Asti. And again, it's made where the wine is made and the frizzante is added as it's bottled. And they make some that are sweeter than others, the less expensive ones, of course. And here in America, in California especially, they've tried to duplicate. You see Muscat Canelli, which is usually non-sparkling, but if you see sometimes the Moscato here is sparkling, sometimes it's not, and it'll say it on the bottle. It'll use the term frizzante or sparkling, and even Spain has gotten into Moscato, and because the Italians do a really great job with it, they're known for it up there. And again, it's sweet, but sometimes, it's not as sweet as Vinsanto, but it's still plenty sweet.
How about the Jerez? The Jerez in Spain.
Jerez in Spain, that's the sherry region, and you can get everything from bone dry to the PX, or the Pedro Jimenez, and it's dark, almost like drinking chocolate. It's sweet and syrupy and black. Yeah.
So like the sweet.
And Vinsanto is more like that. It's more thick and viscous. The Moscato is lighter, but still sweet, but not as sweet. But two of the more famous dessert wines. And of course, now that we're getting into the holiday season, and you want to do something that's a little bit more value-oriented because you can't afford that $150 bottle of French champagne, that's when you look for the Prosecco and the sweeter, the Moscato d'Asti Frizzante gives you a nice aperitif
Yes.
before dinner as well as after dinner.
Prosecco too. Then
Yeah,
you
and
can
Prosecco. And they also make a sparkling wine in Italy that is made in the method of champagne, and it's called Franciacorta. And when you see the word Franciacorta on the label of an Italian bottle, it is usually a very good bottle of sparkling wine made in Italy that's a lot less expensive than French champagne.
So you can celebrate better.
It's one of the ways to celebrate without breaking the bank, and I know people ask me that every year around this time of year. You know, I can't afford my bottle of Krug or my bottle of Veuve this time.
No.
It's a special. Yes, special. It's a special occasion. What do I get? And I refer them to a prosecco or a cava or something. And
which is the much nicer. I like prosecco.
Yeah.
I like prosecco. You know, to start with, and maybe to finish with.
Yeah, and also with prosecco, you can have it where you get a dry prosecco, and you get an extra dry prosecco, where the dry is a brut, and extra dry. This is always a confusing thing, but extra dry actually means sweet. Or
Really?
sweeter, I should say.
Extra
Not
dry.
sweet. Yeah.
It's sweeter than.
Sweeter than brut.
So brut is the dry.
Brut is actually dry, but it's not. The term is different. Because then extra dry is a little more sugar, and then you get into
Don't
the
get
sweet
confused,
stuff. So so that confuses a lot of people. Brut is dry when you're looking at a bottle of sparkling wine, and extra dry has a little bit more sugar in it. Not sweet, but a little bit more sugar. If you want a sweet champagne or a sweet, especially in the French, they call it demi-sec, which is half dry.
Yeah, there we go.
Not extra dry. Demi-sec means half dry, because dry is actually sweet, and when you come to Champagne area, then you got dry, then you got half dry, which is still sweet, and you got extra dry, which is still a touch sweet, and then you got brut, which is as
So
right
remember,
now.
don't get confused with that. Brut.
I hope I
extra dry?
explained that correctly. Yeah, brut, extra dry, if you want a little bit more sweetness to it.
There we go. There we go. So now, Chef, what else are we going to talk about? What?
Well, I'm hoping that we can get some people to come out. We will announce the date here in the next few days. Alberto's, it'll be a Thursday night, probably second week of December, we're thinking.
yeah.
And I'm going to get back behind the stove in the kitchen. I'm going to come up with a 4 or 5 course menu and pair some
How about
wines
that?
up with it. I did this at another restaurant last spring, and we had a nice turnout. So I'm hoping we can get another
And
nice
then we're gonna
turnout.
have the chef.
I get to play around, and I cook at home all the time. I don't cook professionally anymore, but I cook at home all the time. So I stay in practice. So you won't be disappointed. And of course,
you're a professional now, and a knowledgeist and a sommelier, and the chef in the past, and now, but you never forget that, you know.
no, it's like riding a bicycle. I tell people, I never forget how to cook.
And you're going to surprise people with a great menu, and great desserts.
And just don't ask me for recipes, because I don't really ever follow an actual recipe unless I'm baking.
There we go.
Baking has to have a recipe. So what I haven't come up with yet is dessert. I'm thinking about some things, but we were talking earlier about some possibilities. So I think people should watch and of course watch the show and watch for any ads we put out. But
Next
it's going
Tuesday
it's going to be a great time and a great meal.
When is Chef Alstrand is going to have this magnificent dinner at Alberto's El Ristorante. So remember to always trying to remember to make reservations for your parties and Christmas. Christmas is already here, so we're trying to have more and more reservations. And we also cook family dinners. And if you have a favorite dish like, let's say, el osobuco, give me a day or two so we can prepare that magnificent dinner for you and your family or your employees. So all of those companies in Monterey, don't worry about it. Let Alberto take care of you, and then you will have a great dinner. You'll spoil yourself by eating at Alberto's. So remember that, and we probably will see you in the very
Hopefully,
near future.
hopefully I'll see you in a few weeks, and
Yeah.
I'll be bringing the wines along to pair up
Chef
with the
also,
food, and
yes. He's
I'll
gonna-
demonstrate what I just was talking about.
There we go. It's going to be one of a great meal, and you will not forget that. And very soon we will see you. Until next, happy Tuesday, and God bless you, and we'll see you again. Salute.